More and more of the Arctic Ocean is opening up for transportation, exploration, and resource utilization. And a great deal of this ocean is outside of the jurisdiction of countries. In other words, the Arctic high seas are opening up, and that creates both opportunities and challenges.
The Arctic seafloor and proposed outer continental shelf extensions represent the coastal states looking seaward toward the North Pole from the perspective of their national interests. In contrast, the Arctic high seas involves the entire international community with rights and obligations in an inclusive manner, looking coastward from the north in view of their common interests. This juxtaposition of the Arctic coastal states and the international community in the Arctic Ocean reflects the challenge that we face as a civilization to balance national interests and common interests.
We should remember that's the common interests that actually prevail. It's a low-tension area today, where despite some overlapping interests and unsettled boundaries, nations have chosen to find solutions using peaceful means and through negotiations and respecting international law.
The 8 Arctic states share a common responsibility and a mutual interest in the protection and sustainability of the Arctic. This is underlined by our commitment to the Arctic as a region of peace, stability, and cooperation.
This doesn't mean that there is no demand for new legally binding or maybe other pan-Arctic documents and arrangement addressing in advance the concrete challenges coming from changes in the Arctic and complementing the existing legal framework.
Now, to date, there's not been a major shipping disaster in the Arctic, but if and when that day comes, this collaborative work that we have been doing in the Arctic for almost 25 years now will help ensure that we have the capabilities needed to meet the challenges that we may need to face.
We need a stable business regulatory framework wherever we work in the Arctic, and it should be as standardized and as unified as possible. Businesses are quite often, or within the Arctic, they are pan-Arctic. So business can also act as a bridge builder within the Arctic areas, and for the future, which is definitely required because of the very low amount of taxpayers within the Arctic, public-private partnership is an excellent way of leveraging the required investments within the Arctic. high seas future activities and the Arctic area's activities in the future.
Possible fisheries in the international part of the Central Arctic Ocean must be managed in accordance with the law of the sea. That's important, of course. And I think examples on how this has been done in other parts of the Arctic is the Northeast Atlantic Fisheries Commission, where the fishery issues has been solved beyond national jurisdiction.
When declarations and agreements are reached that go beyond the regional influence of a group, then exclusion becomes a problem.
And we should balance the interests of the states in the region, Arctic region, and that of the non-Arctic states. Because according to the definition, it's a common, high sea. It's open space for all villagers in this global village.
The Arctic needs cooperation with partners from outside the Arctic. We need trade, we need investment, and more than that, we need countries from outside the Arctic also to be part of the solutions to some of the challenges that we face, especially with climate change.
We have to marshal our academic and scientific and diplomatic and expertise efforts to measure up to the speed of change in this respect. We don't have decades to deliberate on this or to build the regulatory framework and the international cooperation. We have the most a few years.